Now, let me bring up what's been referred to as a chicken issue, and it is the Lehigh Acres chicken issue. And I just need some direction here. It happens to be in my district, so I've been the recipient of most of the direct mail and interest from the community. But I need to know how far this commission wants to go with this. This began when a lady was contacted by code enforcement and told that she couldn't keep her chickens in the yard because the county ordinance does not allow for chickens in residential areas.
To be clear, she contacted code enforcement to find out.
At any rate, code enforcement, this was triggered. Whoever, it's an issue that is now before code enforcement. Through various conversations with our own staff, with our code enforcement, my aide has spent a lot of time trying to pull all this together. We kind of got a detente with code enforcement as to not to go bring all the troops in and shoot her chickens or confiscate them or anything like that until we could walk our way through this, have a full staff review of the ordinance, other cities and counties and states, what they do with the same situation. That has all been completed now, and we have back before us a report from Ms. Gibbs' shop, which I think everybody has, and it recommends that we make no changes to the existing ordinance. Subsequent to that, we have a request from our sustainability office here that they would like to pursue it and have an opportunity to wade in also, and they seem inclined to support some change. So we have staff on each side of this issue. I will say further that the Lehigh Planning Council has addressed this issue and in a 12-0 vote recommended against any change in the existing ordinance. I don't know about your own emails, letters, contacts from wherever. In my office, since it's my district, I think I've probably gotten as much or more than most of you. The response is overwhelmingly opposed to any change in the existing ordinance. Now, our choice here is to either let the issue die and take no further action and leave everything status quo, or do you want to blue sheet this item so that the folks can fill the chambers here and tell us their thoughts on it, and then we'll make a decision after such. So if someone wants to have the public hearing or to blue sheet the item and hear about it, or based on what you've been receiving or your own personal review of this, I need some direction here. My inclination is to take no further action after that Ms. Gibbs' office has already done. But if there are three of you that want to do something else, now's the time.
Nope.
I don't hear anything. Yes.
If we could, perhaps, is Mary here?
I'm sorry.
Mary Gibbs is here.
Ms.
She could
Gibbs?
just highlight, just for the benefit of those that are listening in.
Bullet point a couple of things, Mary.
The reason I asked for Mary to step forward is that initially, this was presented as an economic issue, and of course, tough economic times. How could you not be at least empathetic and understand the request to allow for the chickens in residential zone property? Of course, they're still allowed on agricultural zone land. But I thought the report was very compelling, particularly in diffusing the economic argument. And now I think it's more of a lifestyle, health issue with regards to raising your own chickens, having organic eggs, and that's a whole other argument than what was initially presented as an economic issue. But perhaps Mary could highlight some of the points.
Can you just summarize your report for us and touch particularly on the economic issue as to how much it costs to raise an egg?
And Commissioners, what we did is we surveyed some selected counties and cities in Florida, and we also surveyed the ones, some of the ones that have been brought up by some of the people that supported the chickens, is the more advanced places throughout the nation. So we did a survey of, I think, about 35 different communities throughout the state and the nation. What we found was that 2/3 of the communities did not allow chickens on your standard residential lots. A lot of the places would allow them in residential if you had at least an acre or 2 acres in general or more, or agriculturally zoned properties. And we're not discounting the sustainability issue because it's obviously very important, and this is a trend. But if you actually examine, the economics of it, it's probably cheaper to buy eggs than to raise them. Now, we understand that people that want to have chickens, there's other factors, the pet, they like them as pets. They like them because it's a little movement towards sustainability. But we, in our survey, in our information, we discounted the fact that it's really not cheaper to raise them, it's cheaper to buy eggs. But that really wasn't the premise of our recommendation. Was really based on the fact that allowing them in residential standard lots really creates a lot of ramifications for the county, because we've got hundreds of thousands of residential lots, and they're 7,500 square feet. So if you were to allow them, you really need to look at the ramifications of do they need to be permitted? Do they need to be licensed? Do they not need to be licensed? The proximity to residential homes nearby, and the fact that a lot of times the neighbors complain because even though you can keep the coops clean, people may not, and you've got odors and nuisance issues. And I think the main reason that we said don't change the ordinance is because they are allowed in agricultural now, where you've got the 1 acre size lots. To allow them in the smaller lots just creates too much possibility of the nuisance factor. And it's very hard. When we looked at other places, like the city of Gainesville, where they did allow them in smaller lots, their code enforcement required licenses and setbacks and chicken coops to be built to building codes. And they still, when you get right down to it, they didn't really enforce it. They just did it on a complaint basis. So that was the basis of our recommendation.
Questions of Ms. Gibbs?
Well, I guess I would just pick up where you left off. So they developed regulations to be able to make it possible for someone to have chickens and raise eggs on small lots and still address the off-site.
In the city of Gainesville, like I said, that was one that we surveyed.
But I wasn't finished, because you said then it is just a complaint-driven process, not an enforcement process. Well, that's mostly how code enforcement operates.
It depends on the jurisdiction, and a lot of our complaints a lot of our issues are complaint-generated, but sometimes they're proactive. I think that the point I'm trying to get across is if you did decide to do it, I think it would be very difficult to enforce, because Joan LaGuardia from my staff called around and talked to a lot of people, and what she really found was that they put a lot of restrictions in place, and you put in a permit and a fee and all these restrictions, but it really comes down to the fact that it's very difficult to enforce.
Mr. Chairman, I have some opinions on this, and would like to first hear from the Community Sustainability Advisory Committee. It was the chair, a volunteer, not the Office of Sustainability, that's made the request to take up this matter. I would like to seek their opinion first on the matter before we decide to do anything or not do anything. And Mary's report, I think, was good, but it looked more in the rearview mirror, not forward thinking. I mean, she mentions trends, but there are trends out there that indicate that this is just the tip of an iceberg of what we're going to have to do differently here in Lee County if we're truly going to be community sustainability leaders. And I think that those trends were not, they weren't given a fair look or study in Mary's report, and I would ask her to maybe consider helping to balance out that white paper, if you will, with an analysis of trends. Because, they call us leaders, and I mean, the bureaucracy is not the leadership branch of this government. We are, and I think if we are to lead on community sustainability, as we all wish to do, that this is not something we can just throw to the wayside because we have a white paper that says others have tried it and failed, or it's very difficult to enforce, or something like that. And let me end with this. Just because this person who contacted code enforcement seeking to find out how she might be able to comply and then was cited, I mean,
Excuse me, that's not correct, Commissioners.
Okay, then I apologize if that's not actually correct. That's what I was told was correct about it.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so
And we do, just to bring, we do have people calling, we have had neighbors complaining about the existing ones, and that is the reason for some of the citation.
Okay, and I'm
Okay,
wholly
now look.
prepared to stand corrected, and that's not a problem, that's not a problem. But what I was going to try to say is that I think the fact that this started in Lehigh doesn't necessarily mean that this is only solely a Lehigh issue. I mean, it could have been anywhere, North Fort Myers or Fort Myers, not the city of Fort Myers, but South Fort Myers unincorporated area. The issue is that important and timely for us to be sure that we have given this a fair and broad review, and I think the Community Sustainability Committee would help in a large way to do that for us. That's why we have these boards, for advice.
Okay, now, we're going to dispose of this issue, or we're going to move forward with it. If there is a motion to pursue this further and bring it ultimately to either, I want a motion that says take it to management and planning, or take it to a blue sheet so we can have total public input. I would entertain such a motion at this time. If the motion is not made, or if it fails, then the issue is finished. Is that clear? No, sir, we can't have public input at this time.
Well, then I would motion that we wait to take action until we've heard from the Community Sustainability Committee.
Is there a second to that motion?
We don't want to wait?
There's no second to the motion, so that motion dies for lack of second. Do you have a further motion?
I would then, I guess, suggest that there's somebody wishing to speak, but we could, a commissioner could ask.
That's not proper under these circumstances. They will have an opportunity. Any of you folks can come back. We have opportunities to speak at the end of our meetings on any subject that you would like to. Today is not one of those days. Am I right on that, folks?
It is one of those days.
Yeah,
This is the last meeting of the month, right?
we did it last week.
Do we?
Oh, fourth.
Do we have public
Sorry.
comment at the end?
No, we did it last week.
So you have to come back the following
I have to
next
look at my
week.
calendar.
And you can say anything you want at that time on this issue, and you may inspire 3 commissioners to change their thinking on it. But for right now, the motion that was proffered has been rejected for lack of second, and I hear no other motion on the matter. So I would go to county, appointments.
Wait, on that issue, I mean...
We're through with that issue.
have we
are
just-
through with that issue. Somebody can bring it up at the proper time, as I have just outlined, but we are through that issue right now, and we are on appointments.
I have none.
Commissioner Manning.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 reappointments